On no poll, basketball season is in full swing, and Kansas is a team that we should keep an eye on.
Are they frauds? Who knows? But the only thing I know is that I'm hopping in the juicer with Skyler Wilkes. He makes his juicer debut today.
Oh, look at that. Skyler doing big things. But, we'll be talking about whether or not we think some teams are frauds. Plus, we got our final words and plays of the week. A whole lot more on No Poll, and it starts right now. Kansas State has been on fire this year.
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was proved they're not going to fire him. He's the best player in program history.
Side to Lawrence for the win. Yes, he got it.
She is the Shohei Ohtani of college softball. This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country.
How you feeling?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
LSU has captured its very first national championship.
No Pulp time here in the CitrusTV studio. That's my backcourt partner, Joe Puccio. I'm Ben Spector. Thank you so much for joining us. And Joe, look, we got to talk about this Kansas team. The Jayhawks have lost 2 of the last 3 games. Both those losses, really tough games for the Jayhawks because you lose to West Virginia by 6, then you lose to a ranked Iowa State team. Kansas, what's been going wrong, especially in those 2 games?
Well, here's the thing, Ben. The Big 12 conference play as a whole is very difficult to be undefeated in, and Kansas is still one of the best teams in college basketball. From what I take away over these last couple of games, there's nothing to worry about in Rock Chalk Nation right now. Kevin McCullough Jr., 20 points a game. Hunter Dickinson, 19 points a game. It's just really hard to keep that early season momentum going. The Jayhawks were 2-1 in the Maui Invitational in a field loaded with top 25 talent, and they picked up some top 25 wins along the way in the regular season. So I don't think single-digit losses to West Virginia and Iowa State are going to make me concerned about a top 30 team in Ken Palm.
Well, both those games were on the road, and it's really tough to win in an opposing team's environment. And look, I understand as you get into tournament play and all that stuff and all that conversation, you have to be successful on a neutral floor, right? Iowa State, though, a really good team at home. Bill Self talked about it after the game, and we have a quote from Bill Self where he continued to talk about Iowa State's success at home. He said, quote, "There have been some frustrating games that we've had this year. I'm not going to put this down as a frustrating game. It's frustrating, a lot of frustrating, because we can't guard the ball. That's what's frustrating. I hope people can understand. There are not too many people that can win in this building this year against that team in Iowa State. We had a chance and just didn't get it done." Kansas was down by as many as 12 points in that contest, came back to make it a single-digit game, make it a close game, and then Iowa State pulled away late. But Kevin McCullough, you talked about 20 points a game, went 5 for 18 in that one, and when you only have one of your your dynamic duo going, it's not a recipe for success.
I'm only concerned if this keeps happening. If Kansas loses its next 2 games in the Big 12, that's a problem. But right now, Kansas is the number 8 team in the country. You're not going to have another 74-75 Indiana in the near future.
Well, any team that has Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough, it's okay.
That's right.
Jayhawk Nation, Rock Chalk Talk, sure.
Something like that,
Something
right?
like that. I'm so sorry, Kansas fans. But I think Kansas, it's okay.
Yeah, Allen Fieldhouse, also a phenomenal place to watch a
place.
college basketball game. Over in the women's side, there was an absolute electric ball game this past weekend. Number 9 LSU taking on number 1 South Carolina. The Gamecocks come away with a 76-70 win over the Tigers. Ben, what did you take away from this game?
Yeah, this was a pretty even game, and this is between 2 teams that are the best in the country. I understand LSU is only a top 10 team, not a top 2 team. South Carolina, the number 1 team in the country. Camila Cardoso had a really good game, 11 points and 8 rebounds. And LSU, though, really made the wrong decisions down the stretch. Angel Reese fouls out. So then what do you do if you're the Tigers? You rely on Michaela Williams, who took a baffling 3 late in the game. It was a 5-point game up to that point. And you just have to give a testament to what Bree Hall has done. She's a great, great shooter, and South Carolina had some fantastic passing, found her in the corner to ultimately give the Gamecocks the lead.
I just remember that we were on the same very program a few months ago, and I was talking about the best team in women's basketball being South Carolina.
Yep.
And I think that has stayed the course. And the reason why South Carolina came away with this win is because it outscored LSU 24-14 in the final frame. You mentioned Angel Reese fouled out with 4 minutes left. At that point, the Tigers were up 67-65, and the Tigers only scored 3 points in the final 4 minutes. So if LSU wants to be that national championship team, it's got to figure out how to finish the game. But man, South Carolina looks unstoppable right now.
Well, when LSU scores a combined 29 points in the second half, really not a recipe for success in closing a game. And what South Carolina did down the stretch is the big reason why they're the #1 team in the country. Raven Johnson also contributed as well, 13 points, 9 rebounds. When you have Cardoso and Johnson combining for 17 boards, it was a close rebounding battle between the two sides. South Carolina narrowly had the margin with just 2 more rebounds than the Tigers, but I still think that this just showed me that South Carolina is the team to beat, and I understand there's a lot of talk about LSU, especially after Haley Van Lith transferred. There was a lot of preseason talk, but South Carolina is still that team.
Well, LSU had a 29-game home win streak snapped.
Right.
South Carolina continues a 28-game road win streak going. We just talked about Kansas having to win on the road in the men's game. South Carolina has proved they could play in South Carolina, in Canada, wherever. They're going to win. So I think that they're not actually going to Canada, but I think if they were to play in Canada, they win. South Carolina, man, they look unstoppable.
Look, if I'm filling out a bracket come March,
Gamecocks.
I know I went on this program and said
box.
that I like Iowa the most, and I still do, but South Carolina, I might be putting their name.
You seem to be a flip-flopper.
Sometimes, I can make a different decision. That's what the season is for. But staying with women's basketball, I mean, we'll talk about the men's team for a second here, but Oregon State, if you're an Oregon State fan, you just got to sit back and enjoy some good basketball because Oregon State women's basketball took down Colorado in a big upset. That is a Pac-12 conference that is loaded in women's hoops, and Oregon State, now a ranked team, the Beavers really making a name for themselves, Joe.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Pac-12 in just a little bit with Skyler Wilkes, but man, Oregon State women's basketball is having a phenomenal season, undefeated at home. They have all of the pieces to go around and contend for this Pac-12 tournament championship. You know, we'll talk about the men's side and how it's a little bit different this year, but if you are Oregon State playing in this conference with, as you see right there, a number 3 next to Colorado's name, UCLA number 2 in the country. USC recently beat UCLA. You have to make a name for yourself, and I think that the way that the Beavers are doing that is being undefeated at home, winning the games that, you're bringing in a top 25, a top 3 team in the country to your place. You come away to win. Oregon State women's basketball is very impressive this season. I have a lot of high expectations for the Beavers.
In a conference with Stanford, UCLA, USC, really strong women's basketball programs. You're Oregon State, you come in, you beat Colorado, and then you have to go up against those teams in the later part of the season, USC, UCLA. That is huge for your confidence when you take down Colorado. I'm looking forward to that rematch, by the way, between Oregon State and Colorado. But if you're the Beavers, you got to be really excited about the women's basketball program. Now, the men's basketball program, there's reason to be excited because they just took down Arizona, and that's an upset in itself by 3 points. But hey, congratulations, you beat Arizona. Upsets happen nonetheless. I still don't think that there's enough confidence for this men's team, 11-9 on the season. They've had some pretty bad losses.
Yeah, there's a middling team in the Pac-12, and the worst place to be is mediocrity because you're not good enough. You're not bad enough, but you're just hanging around in the middle so that if you do play well, you'll win, but most of the time you don't. And I think that Oregon State men's basketball is just one of the residual effects of how talented the Pac-12 is in the men's game with teams that are stacked up in the top 25. So I think Oregon State men's basketball just has to realize, okay, let's take this momentum from this Arizona game. Yes, it's a home win, a buzzer beater. Campus is going nuts, but that's a situation where you have to build off of that momentum and keep it going for the rest of the season. I think Wayne Tinkle and company can keep things going. That's the name of their head coach.
Great name. Great name.
Probably the best name of any coach.
I'd agree with that. Oregon State, though, I want to talk about their losses. I understand that Beavers fans might want to talk about this win, and I understand it.
Yeah.
But you've had pretty brutal losses to Colorado, Utah, and Pitt, where they lost by 20 points or more. A close 3-point win over Utah Valley, does that really move the needle for you after seeing them beat Arizona? Look,
so you're telling me that Utah Valley is better than Arizona? Is that what you're
no,
telling me right
no.
now?
What I'm saying is...
No, that's what it means.
No. But what I'm saying is, how could you be so confident about beating Arizona in Oregon State when you've seen them play some pretty bad basketball against either good programs or play to the program's weakness in that it's a not so good program.
That's college basketball for you. You've got 30 games to prove who you are as a team. Yeah, you can get those resume highlights with a win over Arizona, but man, those valleys are valleys.
Yeah.
So if Oregon State can ride this momentum, good on them. But I really don't see that sustaining.
The upset win over Arizona really does not move the needle for me. It really doesn't make me think of this Beavers side as like, yeah, they can compete.
Yeah, right
in the
into the tournament right now.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I don't think that this is a team that would be talked about in the next few weeks. I understand there was an upset win over a really good Arizona team that will be talked about in the next few weeks. I don't think Oregon.
But their women's team.
Yeah, look, the women's team, we'll talk about them all day long.
That's right.
The Oregon
they could
State
be a Final
team.
Four team.
The Oregon State is in a conference in the Pac-12. We'll be talking about that Pac-12 next on The Juicer. Skyler Wilkes joins the program. He'll take on Joe Puccio after this short break on No Pulp. Don't go anywhere here on Citrus TV. We'll continue to break down the college basketball landscape.
Nuestra historia la empezó alguien más. Nuestra historia usualmente la formaron generaciones anteriores. Nuestra historia se forjó y quizá hasta se definió por las experiencias de nuestra niñez. Pero no tiene que ser así. Tú puedes ser el autor. Aprende cómo en historiademinumero.org.
Tomás es muy buena gente. Es más, míralo. ¡Qué dulzura! Buen trabajo. Espera, Tomás, ¿qué estás haciendo? ¿Qué tan egoísta e inesperado de ti? Tomás, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué?
Juicer time here on No Pulp. Joe Puccio going up against Skyler Wilkes. I'll be the judge. Ben Spector. Look, we're very excited for this juicer. Skyler, you juiced up?
Oh, absolutely.
You're juiced up?
He's juicing?
No, he's just juiced up.
Oh, okay.
He's juiced up.
Okay.
He took some PEDs. He took some steroids. All right. This is your juicer debut, right?
It is. Performance excitement.
Right. That was good. That was really good.
You broke him.
You got me. But look, I want to choose you to go first for the first question. I can't because Joe's going first for the first question. Most competitive conference in men's basketball, Joe?
My choice is outside of the Power 5, Big 6, whatever you want to call it, the Mountain West Conference.
Oh.
You might be thinking, why is Joe going with the Mountain West?
I am.
How about 8 teams currently above 500 overall? In the top 25, you've got 2 teams, Utah State and New Mexico. More than likely, every single year, the Mountain West is a 1 or a 2 bid conference. Right now, Boise State is a member of the last 4 in, so that would make it a 3 bid conference. This is not one of your top tier conferences, leagues in college basketball where, oh yeah, let's give them 4, 5 teams in the NCAA tournament. You've got a handful of teams who are above 500 overall, above 500 in the Mountain West itself that are going to be gunning for 1, 2, 3 bids in the tournament.
Your last name's Puccio, right? Not Lenardi?
That's correct.
All right, I just want to make that sure.
Both Italian, though. How about that?
Skyler, go ahead.
They could be gunning for a spot, but they're not going to have those spots because the Big 12 is going to take up most of them. There's 8 teams in the Big 12 that are in the top 25. That's pretty impressive. You know, I'm a huge fan of Richard Pitino and Denny Sprinkle and what they're doing out there.
Go Cards.
But they're nothing like what's happening in the Big 12. You know, you talk about the net rankings. I know it's caused a lot of buzz. But Houston, number 1. That conference is so competitive. Kansas has lost to teams like West Virginia and UCF, who are at the bottom of the barrel. But they're so tightly knit, and it's so competitive in that conference because of the playing style. They play tough, competitive defense. They're aggressive. You know, Bob Huggins isn't there anymore, but it seems like the entire conference has taken his brand of basketball with him.
Interesting, because Iowa State was just praised by Bill Self about how good they are at home and how good all these Big 12 teams are at home and how good the Big 12 is. I'm going with Skyler with the Big 12. Skyler gets the point.
No love for the mid-majors.
You're right. I'm not giving them love today. I'm all about the Power 5 or the Power 6 if you're interested in putting the Big East in the power
Yep, put them in
situation.
there.
You want to put them in there?
Yep.
All right, we'll put the Big East in the power situation. You okay if we do that?
Yes.
All right, there you go. Power 6 it is. But from the men's side to the women's side, same question for you. We'll start with Skyler. The most competitive women's basketball conference.
Yeah, I'm sticking in the Power 5, Power 6,
There you
whatever
go,
you call it, with the ACC, which another team
Atlantic
has.
Coast Conference.
Atlantic Coast Conference, about to be nationwide conference next year. But the teams have also been, a lot of teams in the top 25 rankings. And you look at all the talent. You look at Liz Kitley, Georgia Amore from Virginia Tech, and Tanai Latz from Florida State, Deasia Fair from Syracuse. All of these teams can beat each other, and it comes down to that. Competition is all about who can go at each other's throats the most, and the ACC, it's going to be a dogfight come tourney time and heading into March Madness.
I think the ACC will have a team in the national championship game playing against a team from the Pac-12.
It's not ridiculous.
I just want to keep saying the word Pac-12 on this television screen.
Say the full thing. Say the full thing.
Pacific 12
there you
Conference.
go.
Not many times we're going to be saying that conference's name, but in the world of women's basketball, the Pac-12 is going out with a bang. 5 teams with 3 or fewer overall losses. And if you look at the Pac-12 itself, Stanford and Colorado are clearly 1-2, 8-1, 7-2 in conference. But then Oregon State, Utah, and USC are 5-3 and 5-4, 5-4 being Utah and USC. These teams are beating up on each other. Some of the best teams that we just talked about being one of the top teams in the Pac-12, they're losing to teams that are pretty good. So whoever comes out as this league's champion is a true title contender, and I think they'll take on one of those teams that you mentioned in the ACC, but I think that whoever wins the Pac-12 will be better battle-tested.
You just saw it on your screen. The Pac-12 has 3 teams in the top 10. And on top of that, Oregon State just beat one of those teams in Colorado, and we just broke it down, and I'm breaking down this question and giving Joe the point. So it's 1-1. I think the Pac-12 is a more competitive conference than the ACC. 1-1 your score. This is for all the marbles. There's a championship ring waiting outside for one of Joe or Skyler to take home. So this question is worth only 1 point because 3. Do the math.
That's how math.
Most under the radar college player, men's or women's basketball. Joe, we start with
going back to our friends in the Mountain West with Isaiah Stevens. Now this guy just today was named to the Bob Cousy Award watch list as one of the nation's top guards in the country. You see his stats right there on the screen. He's 3rd in the nation with 8 assists per game, also throwing up 17 points per game. But here's the thing, he's the leader of a 15-5 Ram squad that beat a top 10 team in Creighton. First time Colorado State has done that since 1984. Isaiah Stevens should be talked about more. He's joining that list along with Boo Booey, your guy from Northwestern.
My guy.
So I think that Isaiah Stevens will be in that conversation for the Bob Cousy Award because of what he's doing to get Colorado State perhaps in the NCAA tournament.
You talked about the mid-majors earlier, Joe. I'm going basically as mid-major as you can to the SoCon.
Oh, man.
A great player and a great name, Vontarius Woolbright from Western Carolina. Got to give love to the Catamounts, and his stats pop off the charts. He's averaging 21.5 points per game and 12.8 rebounds per game. I forgot to mention, he's 6'6", and he has over a rebound more than 7'4" Zach Edey. This guy is just an absolute baller. He's averaging over 23 points a game. In the last 5 games, he's dropped 35. It's like Kevin Martin is all the way back at Western Carolina. And the thing that I want to line up against Isaiah Stevens is the player efficiency rating. We're going to go
You're attacking Joe's player?
Whoa.
That feels a little bit wrong, so I have to cut you off there.
All right.
This is sportsmanlike. Look, I'm taking Isaiah Stevens. All right. If you were smart, one of you would have picked Boo Booey, but I had to pick somebody.
I got close.
Isaiah Stevens. Look, he's leading a very good team. 15-5 for Colorado State. Yeah, Isaiah Stevens.
Western Carolina is the same record.
Look, I think Isaiah Stevens is the better player. All right, you might feel your phone buzzing a little bit because you're getting a fraud alert. Joe and I will tell you what that whole thing means on the other side. Don't go anywhere on No Pulp.
precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's keep things rolling here on No Pulp. Joe Puccio and Ben Spector. This thing looks pretty dangerous. It's time for the fraud alert. We've got some teams in college basketball that have either started the year off well and then have tailed off recently. We're going to dictate if they're frauds or not. So, Ben, the first team I have for you is the Auburn Tigers. Right now, 6-4 in the SEC, but they've been a little bit sluggish as of late. Are you proceeding at your own risk here with the Tigers? What are you doing?
This is a fraud. So, go about your life with a little bit of caution. The Auburn Tigers are frauds, quite frankly. This is what Bruce Pearl does. He makes cupcake schedules in the non-conference slate. I could really use a cupcake right now. But anyways, he goes into conference play. They beat Arkansas. Arkansas struggling this year. Beat Texas A&M. Okay, Texas A&M, pretty solid. Beat Ole Miss. Really good. 2 straight losses to Alabama and Mississippi State. You just can't trust them. You think Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler are still there, so you want to believe in Auburn? Nope. They're in the NBA. Auburn, not a really good offensive team, in my opinion. I don't think they can outshoot anybody defensively. They're pretty solid, and that's where the misleading thing happens.
So, that's our first fraud alert. You got some other teams here?
I got another team I want to ask you about. Baylor.
Oh, the Bears.
What do you think?
Well, they were once the national champion, and now they're the fraudulent champion. Well, the championship wasn't fraudulent. They're fraudulent.
TCU down by 1.
Baylor
Nelson
was one of the top teams in the country, but now, as they have shifted in towards Big 12 play, they've gotten blown out by some of the worst teams in that league. Baylor, as a team, 3 straight losses to Kansas State, Texas, and TCU. And earlier on in the season, they were blown out by Michigan State by over 20 points. I'm not sold on the Bears. This is not one of the Baylor teams of the past, just like you mentioned how they're not one of the Auburn teams in the past. I think that Baylor is a fraud, and as we just talked about, the Big 12 is a pretty good conference. I don't think the Bears are good enough for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you lose by that much to a Michigan State team, it's really not ideal.
Let's shift gears to the Pac-12 now with the Arizona Wildcats. Ben, are they frauds?
Arizona loses 1 game to Oregon State, and all of a sudden we want to put them in the fraud conversation. No, Arizona is not fraudulent. Look, Caleb Love is having one of the best seasons, if not the best season, of his collegiate career. Look, resume wins over Michigan State and Wisconsin, and those are teams that have controlled the conference in the Big Ten pretty well. The losses, not really that bad. They lose by 3 to Oregon State. They lost to FAU in overtime by just 1. FAU, a very good team, but Caleb Love is really the player to look out for. He can lead Arizona to the promised land. Now, Joe, we talked about this team earlier in the show. Kansas. 2 of the last 3 they lost, only beat Cincinnati by 5. Is Kansas fraud?
No. Absolutely not. I mean, if you heard me earlier on in the show,
right,
I was telling fans not to be worried about it. This is not a fraudulent basketball team. This is one of the best teams in the country. I get it, man. 4 tough losses as of late, but earlier on in the season, wins over Kentucky, UConn, Tennessee, Oklahoma. Not every team can be perfect, unless you're the 76 Indiana Hoosiers. But the thing is, if you mentioned this earlier, if you have Hunter Dickinson on your basketball team, you are not a fraud. You are a great basketball program. So, Kansas fans, you guys are fine. I am not risking anything here with the Jayhawks. I'm on your side. But we've got one more segment here on No Pulp. We're talking our plays of the week and, of course, our final words coming up right here on No Pulp. We're getting away from all the caution. We'll be safe after this.
Come on,
It's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to No Pulp. I'm Ben Spector. Joe Puccio still here. He'll give you his play of the week in a second. But here's my play of the week, all right? We're going to women's college hockey. Brown versus number 8 Quinnipiac. And this is a goal that you certainly want to see. Make sure you keep an eye on Margot Norhad because look at this Michigan goal. Run it back. Let's see it again. Oh, my goodness. Came out of nowhere. Gave Brown a 2-1 lead over a top 10 team in the country. Brown went on to win 4-1. You don't see goals like that with frequency. Margot Norhad with a spectacular Michigan goal to help Brown take down Quinnipiac.
I think Michigan goals and behind-the-back lacrosse goals are some of the coolest plays in all of sports. But for mine, we're going back to the hardwood. Pac-12 women's basketball. Southern California's Juju Watkins had the play of the season. So Watkins is sitting in the corner right now in the wing and just absolutely yoinks the ankles of a Washington State defender. Juju on that beat. I don't remember that dance move in that song. Look at that. Just see ya all the way to half court. The hoop's the other way. And Watkins pops the 3 with a swish. I mean, that is easily the play of the week.
Joe, you don't know how to do the Juju? I'm just putting that out there for you. Anyways.
Hit the running man.
It is a really good dance.
Yeah, we'll do it after the show.
All right, my final word is about talking about the events in Providence, Rhode Island this past weekend. The event. So let's throw a date out there. March 20th, 2023. Out of seemingly nowhere, Ed Cooley, after 12 years of being the head coach of Providence, with immense success with the Friars, his hometown team packed up his bags and left. Sure, how he left was a real tough look. Again, out of nowhere, but where did he go? A school in the Big Ten, an SEC side, ACC? No. Fellow Big East foe, Georgetown. Here's another date, January 27th, 2024. The date Providence fans circled on the calendar. Why? Ed Cooley's return to the Amica Mutual Pavilion. Hours before tip-off, 12,000 fans outside the arena were just yelling, taunting, booing Ed Cooley and the Hoyas. That type of response to the homecoming of sorts carried into the venue. And Providence won. But it might have sparked a rivalry after Ed Cooley said this.
This wasn't overnight that everybody came in here. If anything, I should ask Providence College for a bonus check based on the energy that was in here. And that's no lie.
Wow. You watch that and you just have to think of the term confidence. A rivalry is here to stay and it is big. Providence and Georgetown. And I cannot wait to continue to see it unfold.
And then, you got UConn and St. John's coming up this weekend. The Big East is totally back. For my final word today, I'll give you a final phrase. College hockey is spectacular. It's never been highlighted more so than this past weekend. For the first time ever, Boston University and Boston College met as the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. On Friday, Eagles took down the Terriers 4-1, and then on Saturday, BU made it close, but a 4-1 win for BC gave the Eagles a sweep and the top spot in the land. Names that are currently in hockey discussions around the world. Macklin Celebrini, Cutter Gauthier, 8th overall pick Ryan Leonard, all made impressions this weekend in this rivalry. It's great for hockey, but this also proved to me that regional rivalries matter in college sports. BU and BC are separated by 3 miles. 3! Over 6,000 people showed up at the Conti Forum to watch Friday's game. Most of the major New England teams all play in the Hockey East. Atlantic hockey features New York and Pennsylvania. Big Ten is in the Midwest. Perhaps the only sport that allows me to say that sentence on television anymore is college hockey. Folks, regional rivalries make college sports. Hockey programs aren't impacted by the realignment in football, basketball, and softball as examples. College hockey will serve as a reminder of what college sports used to look like. And Ben, all of you at home, these two teams play again in the Bean Pot in early February. College hockey's the best.
Hockey, basketball, winter sports. It is just awesome. All right, he's Joe Puccio. I'm Ben Spector. That's all the time we have on No Pulp. Thanks so much for joining us and enjoy this week of college sports.